If you have visions of new cars rather than sugar plums bouncing around in your Christmas brain, Jeremy Cato is here to unveil the latest automotive news and show off everything from diesel Mercedes to a Subaru or two, perhaps. Since we last talked, Cato has swanned around car shows in Los Angeles and Tokyo. You can read him in the Globe and Mail and see him on his Car Business television show, and it is my pleasure to welcome Jeremy Cato back to Studio 4 to tell us more. Not hi, arigato? What is it?
Mele kalikimaka.
Mele kalikimaka? Welcome back from Japan.
Well, thank you. You know, the Japanese, you wander around Tokyo or Hiroshima, where I was, Christmas lights, Christmas trees, but they don't get Christmas Day off.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone in Canada.
It's a shopping holiday for them. But I asked around, my friends in Japan who are working there, and they said, no, it's not a stat. And I said, well, why? What's all with the Christmas lights and the trees? And they said, well, it's a shopping experience, right? It's all about the shopping.
Of course it is.
Yeah, there are other Japanese holidays, but they don't. It's not a national holiday.
On Christmas, you shop, or you return, or you get a bargain. Contrast the LA show and the, was it Tokyo or Hiroshima?
Tokyo. I went down to Hiroshima because I was doing some TV stuff down there with Mazda, but driving electric cars. But, I would argue right now that the LA Auto Show is a more international auto show. More international automakers are there, and the fact that it is a more wide open show. Tokyo, first of all, Japan is a closed market. I mean, it's very difficult for foreign automakers to sell any kind of car there. Let me give you an example of that. Audi, which is second or third largest premium automaker in the world, is going to sell, I don't know, 1.5 million cars this year. The Audi brand sells 20,000 cars in Japan. Not
allowed to import them, or?
Well, there's high duties, and there is a number of very subtle restrictions on selling cars in Japan that create issues for foreign automakers, and the Japanese market is Japan is a closed society.
True.
And it's not just the restrictions on imports that are the problem. It's the cultural dimension of being in Japan.
Still difficult to immigrate to Japan if you're not Japanese?
Yes.
Still?
Yeah, and it's a huge weakness. During the recovery, the homogeneous nature of Japanese society was really a benefit, right? This was a society that could pull together and rebuild a country from nothing. And I mentioned I was in Hiroshima, and I went down to the Peace Park in downtown Hiroshima, where the atomic bomb was exploded 600 meters above, and there's very little left. And you look at the pictures as you wander through the Peace Park, and there was nothing left. I mean, nothing. This place was destroyed, and the firebombing of Tokyo. And so in the post-war period, this whole homogeneous nature of Japanese society allowed them to really pull together as a society and recreate it.
Yes.
The opposite is true now. It is destroying, I believe, and I wrote about this in the Globe, is that it's not an international society. It's not an outward-looking society, and it's a weakness for the car companies, and that's what I primarily concern myself.
It's sort of a place in time, back to the future,
yes,
if you will.
Well, I mean, so the automakers now, the Japanese automakers are struggling, especially Honda and Toyota, are struggling to find their feet again.
And lots of trains in Tokyo.
Too. I took them.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
Who drives in Tokyo? Like, who drives?
Fewer and fewer.
Fewer and fewer. Yeah, and if you drive in Tokyo and you're a Tokyo business person, what do you drive? Mainly?
Well, I mean, that's why you're seeing this flood of small cars, electric car concepts coming out, is because Japanese society has evolved away from the high horsepower, let's go fast, sexy cars into being very environmentally friendly. I mean, here, simple things like, I was there for a week in Japan and used some public washrooms.
Right.
No paper towels anywhere. And, so I got used to walking out of the washer, and very few of the hand blowers. Yeah, I mean, there's like one Dyson hand blower for the big public washroom at the Shinkansen station in downtown Tokyo. So you walk out of there and you're wearing a suit and you're, it's like...
Shaky, shaky, shaky.
And the whole society has gone this way. It's gone very green, very concerned with the environment. That's why you're seeing the Japanese automakers pushing very hard, not on diesel cars or anything, but electric cars, Priuses, Leafs, and all these electric car concepts that were shown. Honda showed a very cool electric car roadster. You know, you got your list here. The Suzuki Q concept, you know, is all about efficiency. The tiny little city car.
Okay, user friendly.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
small, like a scooter, really.
Well,
Look
you
at
know,
that.
or
Look at that.
little 1, 2, 3
That's a
seater.
car?
Well, yeah,
That's a
not the
scooter
girl
with
on the
wheels.
left, but the car. Yes, you know. Yeah, that's well. These are concepts and these are ideas about how to do a very efficient sort of electric cars in the
So they look
tight
a bit
urban
like
environment.
a smartphone.
Yeah, yeah,
Sort of.
tiny little cars.
The Toyota Fun car.
Well, another little concept, but these are ideas. The
These
fun
are not
one was, you know,
done.
That's not going to ever reach a showroom near you, but the Japanese culture also likes these very colorful concept cars. And the Tokyo show, you asked me to compare and contrast. Tokyo was always famous with Los Angeles. Tokyo was always famous for showing, you know, fun concept, very fanciful, very bizarre.
Right.
Not a lot of them. I know your producer put together this list here. Not a lot of that stuff. There was more talk about the inflated yen and the Japanese car companies that are struggling in the wake of the big tsunami, the earthquake, the almost nuclear meltdown, and then the flooding in Thailand. So we're not used to seeing the Toyota and Hondas of the world struggling to find their feet. And to go back to my comment, is that these are companies that are run by Japanese executives who live in Japan, and they're not worldly in the sense of being integrated with executives from around the world. Nissan, by contrast, which has got an alliance with Renault, right there, each company owns about 50% of the other. There's 9 members on the management board of Nissan. Half of those, 4 of those members are from Europe or the United States.
Okay, so more international.
Right, and this is an interesting story now. How are the Japanese companies that are not traditionally, Japanese society is normally is traditionally closed, it's been a strength.
Right.
How are they, in a world of free trade agreements, here's a big issue in Japan.
And hot
for the
competition,
car companies.
Tough competition.
Korea has signed free trade agreements with the United States, with Europe, with some of their Asian partners, and we'll certainly have one soon with Canada. Japan doesn't have free trade agreements with any of those countries.
Interesting.
If you're a
So
car
the
company,
Kias and the
global,
Hyundais.
are better positioned to go global than the traditionally
Well, you
global.
would think Volkswagen, it seems to get in everywhere in the world, would
Right.
get into Japan.
You would think, and Volkswagen and Audi did have a big presence there, the Volkswagen Cross concept coupe there, which is basically what you're looking at is the next Volkswagen's, that's what the next Tiguan will probably look like. So look at the design cues of that very bold front grille, you know, that real concave side fender, that's sort of the design cues, those huge wheels filling up the wheel wells. The next generation
What's with the huge wheels?
Well,
I thought it was just the picture.
there's a great line that I can tell you off air from a designer once told me.
Okay.
Wheels and something else, they can never be too big.
I see.
yeah.
I think I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
But I'm not going to say it's a family program.
No,
But
family.
the idea here is that Volkswagen does want a bigger presence. Audi, I mentioned Audi is going to sell 20,000 cars in Japan, wants to sell 40,000 next year in Japan. So the German makers are pushing hard.
Right. Did you see a Bentley or a Rolls or an Aston Martin or a fancy car?
Not well. I mean, they were there. There were some presence of those
not
because
many.
the Coach bags sell very well in Japan too.
And Louis Vuitton.
Louis Vuitton, Dolce & Gabbana shoes.
Yeah.
So very fashion conscious. But General Motors had a very tiny presence at the Tokyo Auto Show. Very, very tiny. It was almost like a little corner. Ford wasn't there at all. Not at all. The world's third
Not
biggest
at all.
automaker, not even there. Not even because they can't sell
Not
cars.
that new Ford Focus.
No. And Hyundai didn't have a presence there. The
heaven's
5th
sakes.
largest automaker in the world,
Yeah.
Hyundai, Kia, not even there. The last year that Hyundai was in Japan, I think was 3 years ago, they sold 2,000 cars in the whole country, a market of 3+ million new vehicles.
Gee. Okay, well, we'll take a short break and then we'll come back
Yeah.
and look at a Mercedes, 2012 Mercedes.
Oh, we love
that
them,
looks
yeah.
hot. The S350, and we've got BMW
M
Coupe and
MKZ Hybrid.
a Lincoln Hybrid.
Yeah, and it's a
Really?
good buy.
It's a good buy.
Good buy.
He says so. We'll come back.